And welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell from MSONewsports.com. Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Kukuru are here as well from Salem News and Gloucester Times. And we might have some other folks join us along the way as well here on our weekly podcast, or Zoom, if you will. Gentlemen, anything to talk about this week? Anything happening? Matt, I'll start with you. Northeastern Conference. I know you've been very vocal on this. As a league voted not to participate in fall sports this fall, to move the soccers or whatever into the called Fall 2, which would start at the end of February and so on. But yet on Friday there were some protests from different schools around the Northeastern Conference.
Yeah, slow news week. Not a lot going on in the sports world, local, national, no big deal here. But yeah, I mean, we're just still seeing the photos and whatnot come through. All the kids out there in Danvers today, and I know there were a couple of other gatherings. I think at Masconomet and at Swampscott. So I think, I'm assuming that most of the people watching us on our podcast here have been caught up on the news. They got the news from Phil early in the week. They read my piece on what I thought about it. So I don't know how much time we want to spend kind of catching everybody up, but I guess I would just say that, the heartening thing about these demonstrations, no matter what happens, if it changes anything or not, I don't know, but the interesting thing and the really encouraging thing for me is it's all student driven. These are kids, captains, getting together and talking to their peers, talking to their rivals. It's not being driven by parents. It's not being driven by coaches or adults. And I think if I was a school administrator, seeing the kids use their own voice, I mean, that's what education's all about, right? So to me, the fact that it's all kid driven, athlete driven, that should carry a lot of weight.
Rick Moore has joined us as well from MSONewsports.com. And Rick, I think you were over in Danvers, right?
I was. And as Matt was saying, it was definitely student-driven. Masconomet, Danvers, Peabody were all there at the square. And I talked to the captains of each school for their spring sports. And what was amazing was, first of all, the intelligence of the kids. They're so well-spoken, but also they all had masks on. They all spoke respectfully of the decisions that had been made, and they were hoping to turn this thing around. I think they all read Matt's piece this week, and they were all saying that we can do this safely, and they were enthused. They were sort of separated until they marched downtown. They went from the Danvers Commons, and then they marched downtown to Danvers Square, and they were chanting, "Let us play and save our season." And it was it's encouraging to see that kind of participation.
Nice to see a peaceful, positive protest once in a while here, huh?
Yeah. And not only that, but it's done with some intelligence. They have a purpose. One of the kids, he said, geez, he's from Masco. He says, geez, I wonder if we can petition to get back into the Cal now, because they're going to play. So, don't know if that'll work.
I was thinking about that exact same thing the other day. Yeah, absolutely. Nick, what about up in Gloucester? What's the buzz up there? What are you hearing in that area?
Not a whole lot. Nobody really participated in that protest today, and nobody told me they were going. If they were there, I don't think they made themselves known that they were from Gloucester. But I mean, pretty much the same as every place else. I think pretty much everyone's pretty disappointed with what's going on. The coaches I talked to, though, have been pretty diplomatic about the whole thing. Pretty much, as understanding as they can be. Still disappointed in the decision, but I think they all saw it coming.
Yeah. Phil Stacy, want to weigh in here?
I do. First of all, I want to say real kudos to Willie for the column he did this week. As you referenced, I think a ton of people read it, got a ton of social media interaction, and without sounding overly dramatic, I think it's the kind of thing that can help invoke change. I think his words spoke for a large swath of student athletes, certainly coaches, some administrators, and parents throughout all of those Northeastern Conference towns, at least the ones where they're not in the red and they could have, or could, I should say, technically play this fall. I think his words really resonated with a lot of people. There was one athletic director who reached out to us and said it was perfectly put, and relayed Matt's column to all of his coaches, who agreed in unison how well done it had been. So I really want to give credit to Matt for putting into words what a lot of people were feeling about this situation. I think it also speaks very well to the student athletes for getting this together themselves and taking action. I mean, 2020, we're in the year of the protest as much as anything else. And I think people see that change happens when large groups of people get together peacefully and, you know, make clear that they're unhappy about something or they want to see change or whatnot. And I think this was a great show to the decision makers that, you know, they're not happy with the decision and they want to see something done about it. I mean, we ran a poll this week after the decision came out on our Twitter page, just to kind of gauge and see how many people thought that this fall 2 season may actually happen. You know, because naturally you hear people say, well, how are they going to golf? And they always say late February, but that's when practices start. How are you going to golf in early March, a match in early March? And how are you going to play field hockey or soccer or whatnot when there could still be snow on the ground? And there are a lot of questions that people don't think of as far as, well, you know, a lot of these schools have turf fields, but there might be one turf field and the grass fields aren't playable. Either they're under snow or they're just not ready to be used in that capacity at that time of year. So how are you going to get 3 boys soccer teams, freshman varsity and junior varsity, 3 girls soccer teams, 3 field hockey teams, cross-country teams running? How are you going to get all those teams and football teams, for that matter, which we already know we're going to play in the fall too, or are scheduled to? How are you going to have them all share the same field? Like that's not one of those things where you can say, well, we'll cross that bridge when we deal with it. No, you got to kind of work out those semantics ahead of time, or you have one team practicing and 11 others waiting to practice. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I know I'm rambling here a little bit, but I think it's great that the student athletes spoke their mind, showed what they can do, combining together. Rick, you said that it was Danvers, Peabody, and Masconomet. Did you see Marblehead, Swampscott, Beverly, any of those kids there?
No, I just saw, in fact, those 3 schools were really well represented. A lot of young kids were there. They had kids from freshmen through seniors, but only those 3 schools. That's all I saw. Saw a lot of Boston news people there, but just the 3 schools. As I said, though, Phil and guys, just well represented, well behaved.
Yeah, I'm seeing video come across here now of. Sorry, yeah, I'm seeing some pictures come across the social media now of Swampscott and Beverly. You know, so at least Beverly girls soccer here I'm seeing, and some Swampscott looks like boys and girls soccer too. So at least you know, it's such a big crowd, right? I mean, so that's up to what, 5 schools? I mean, at least half the league must have had at least some people there, and you know, so that's good.
With Salem and Saugus now leaving that red area and falling back into, what is it, yellow, which is the one beneath that, which means they would be eligible to play. That's 9 out of 12 NEC schools that could play. And, you know, I really believe that things like this can cause change. It's not too late to say, you know what, maybe we were a little harsh. Maybe it's smart to at least try to do this. Maybe it's worth our while to explore it. I think some people thought that maybe there would be a domino effect once the Northeastern Conference said that they were pushing the fall sports off. It's actually been quite the opposite. I think everyone else feels as though, you know, for lack of a better term, they panicked. That the principals may have panicked in making this choice, and everyone else is kind of well, you know, there are an awful lot of, you know, smart people saying that if done safely, we can attempt to do this. Doesn't mean it's going to play out all the way through, but we can at least attempt to do this. Maybe that's within our best interest to do that. So I think that's what you know, it's no coincidence that those superintendents are meeting today as well.
What do you think about the professional model, guys? Because it's one thing to be in the bubble for the NBA and the NHL, which has worked very well. But Major League Baseball, they had that one little hiccup there at the beginning, but they're moving along pretty well. And, you know, they're traveling all over the country. So, I mean, if these people in the bubble and the pros are doing it at a more intense level, don't you think maybe the kids could give it a try? And I'll tell you, Matt, the kids I talked to, they were all insistent on they could do this safely, and they do the social distancing, they wear the mask.
Well, and a lot of them have been doing it all summer long. I mean, they've been playing, you know, club field hockey, club baseball, club soccer, so they know it can be done. And I think that was the big thing that I really underlined in my piece was the prematurity of the decision. I mean, you know, today the MIA guidelines for the modified rules came out. Now, if you know, for instance, field hockey is going to have to be 7-on-7. Now, I've already seen posts from Swampscott and Maskell Field Hockey that they're excited they'll play 7-on-7. But, you know, just hypothetically, if those rules came out and the 12 Northeastern Conference coaches got together and they said, hey, you know, 7-on-7 is a lousy game, we don't want to play this way, let's wait. I think a lot of people would understand and respect that. To make that decision without even seeing the rules, as the NEC did, I think was wrong. And again, we're still 3 weeks away from the start of practice. So to say, well, you know, too many schools are red today, you know, so what? That doesn't matter. What matters is what the color on the map is on September 17th. So wait and see if it changes. You know, the prematurity of the decision was really something that bothered me. And I think just a quick point of clarity too, you know, even if the superintendents were to overrule or if there was to be a revote, keep in mind that the school committees in each of these towns, because I think every school except for Peabody is remote and Peabody's hybrid. So every school committee is going to have to approve this as well. So it's not just as simple as the principals say, play and we play. Now you would assume the school committee would take the direction, you know, of the AD, of the principal, of the protesters, et cetera. But, you know, just as a procedural thing, it does still have to go before these school committees, you know, if it gets rescinded.
You know, I wanted to weigh in. I respect the initial decision that, hey, we're a league, we're going to do this together. If we have 5 schools that can't participate, fine. But now 5 is down to 3 because I guess, as you mentioned, Phil, Salem and Saugus are out of that red. So that leaves English, Classical, and Winthrop unable to play. But as Willie mentioned earlier, you know, as you look to try to do fall 2, which starts February 24th or 28th, whenever it is, that looks like a nightmare if you're playing all these sports in fall 2. I mean, you could barely do the football thing in fall 2, but to do all these other fall sports in fall 2, that's crazy, you know, because like that fall 2 could be entirely under a foot of snow. I mean, so how do you figure that's that's a real plan? You know what I'm saying?
More than 57% of people in our poll said there was zero chance of that fall 2 sports season ever happening.
Because of what I'm saying, you're saying. Is that what you're saying, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
A couple of points here, Bill. As you said, I respect the decision of the principals. I think, you know, their job is the safety of the students. That's a big part of their job, let's say. And they're looking out for students' well-being. They're trying to think proactively and protect them and whatnot. I'm sure they think about things that we may not often think of, such as, well, what about transportation? We can't throw 30 kids into a bus. How are we going to get somebody from, say, Swampscott to Gloucester safely? Things like that. I respect that. One person told me, you know, there are an awful lot of smart people in the Ivy League and the Pac-10 and the Big Ten and the NESCAC schools who help make those decisions, why none of those college conferences are playing. I get all that. I respect all that. Having said that, why normally I would say under most normal circumstances, and this is most decidedly not a normal circumstance, I agree with the, hey, all for one, one for all mentality of the Northeastern Conference, like in many of our leagues. But I had several athletic directors tell me, you know, in confidence, that were their school in the red and other schools weren't that wanted to play, they could never envision a scenario where they would say, well, my kids can't, so your kids shouldn't be able to either. it would be more, absolutely, take advantage of this if you can and play. I just don't see where that, if we can't play, you can't play, edict comes in that I heard was kind of, and again, this is, you hear bits and pieces of things. I wasn't in the room, I don't know. But you hear bits and pieces of things that was kind of insinuated, if not flat out spoken. I am curious to wonder if that same thinking would apply if this were another season. If this were the winter season and a state championship basketball team wasn't going to be able to play because some other schools were in the red, would they be so, eager to give up that fall season with the hope of playing in the fall too? Just as an example, it could be a hockey team, or it could be a state championship gymnastics team, whatever, that kind of thing. I just think that, yes, that there's a time and a place to be unified as a conference and to take a stand as a conference and do things. But I really feel like in this case, and now that we know it's 9 of the 12 schools, so 75% of the schools in this conference are being told, yes, with modifications and safety precautions put into place, you can attempt to play a fall season. But the 25% that are not allowed to because of these DESE guidelines are saying, nope, if we can't, you can't. That doesn't sit well with me.
I also, I'm not sure, we're talking about the weather, but who knows what the COVID situation is going to be like in February as well. I just feel like, when you can play, it's legal to play, it's safe to play now with modifications. Why not at least try it? Because you don't know what
flu season right now, which it will be then.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, so who knows? Because we're in a pretty decent spot right now. I just feel like, why not try it if you can do it?
And I do think it's important to look at both sides of the coin here. Maybe the reason we are in a good spot right now is because the majority of people have been social distancing. It's not cold and flu season. People have been staying out of restaurants and things like that. Maybe these large gatherings would not be good, and we'd be proven, that wasn't a good idea. And, hopefully nothing, there's no death because of it. But I have to say, I think it's worth a try, and I don't know if the door has already been closed on that issue yet or not. You have to hope not for these student athletes' sakes. I guess these next few days, as the past few days have been, will continue to tell the story.
The other thing too that we've talked about a number of times over the last few weeks is that our schools reopening with students or without students, and they are going to be remote, and we've already touched on that a bit here. But, I'm actually thought there would be more districts with the hybrid model with some students coming back. And in fact, Salem was going to do that until a couple of weeks ago when they went into the red. But I'm still surprised that more schools aren't trying to do that, to make a step to come back in part-time when you have cities or towns, some cities and towns that have hardly any cases at all, and they're still totally remote. So that tells me, it goes back to Willie's point earlier, the school committees, I still don't know. If their students aren't in school, and I've said this so many times before, are they going to blanket and okay sports? You know what I'm saying? In that situation, if their kids are not even back in the classroom. So yeah, I think we still have a lot of time for this to play out.
Take a look at Danvers Square, though. If they decide to vote that way, they're going to have a whole bunch of kids in masks with signs outside their office letting them know what they think. So I think that, if I'm a school committee member, that carries a lot of weight with me.
Yeah, I know, but they've already voted not to be in school. You know what I'm saying? So
it's not relevant. The state, the MIAA has set its guidelines. You don't have to be in school to play. Again, these are to me, if you all these committees, PhDs, MDs, they say that you don't have to be in school to play, then, hey, they're smarter than me. And I don't say that very often,
And the school, let's say there's, 900 kids in a high school, let's say. The bell rings, there's people teaming in the halls, it's not like the social distancing. On a team, you might have 20 kids and you're outside, and it's easier to social distance along a sideline where there's nobody else there. There's no fans in attendance. I think it's really an apples and oranges thing. Do I think kids should necessarily be back in classrooms of 30 with teachers in there? No, I don't. But I think for something like this, where it is outdoors, it is socially distanced, and you're talking about a minimum number of kids, completely different scenario.
And Phil, to put a capper on that, athletics are part of the school day. And whether you're in the building or not in the building, these kids are required to go to school. They're going to be social distancing, they're going to be distance learning, or they're going to be in the building. And so if you're starting off remotely 100%, the kids are still in school, they're participating in school. And if it's safe to participate in athletics, then why can't they do that? Whether they go into the building, well, they can go into the building, I presume, for lockers and stuff like that. So I think it is apples and oranges. And I just was moved by the kids' actions today.
It's still fruit, though, guys. Apples and oranges, and so
In the end, we're all fruit, to coin a phrase.
Yeah, so I guess all I'm saying is that, and I'm not saying that schools have to have 30 back in the classroom, because that's not a reality, of course. But if you had 10 in a classroom where you normally would have 30, or 8 in a classroom when you'd have 25, or whatever the numbers are, schools aren't even there. They're not even there. You know what I'm saying? So until they get there, what I'm saying to you is, if I'm a school committee member, how can I look at this and say, is that consistent or not? I mean, I'm off, or maybe that's how they've the rationale. They think, we got to get back somehow. Maybe this is the first step, and I'm okay with that too. But I'm just saying, I'd just be wary looking down the road to see how this plays out. I agree with Willie, though, that this does send a message, and it sends a pretty strong message. And I also think that it should send a message that maybe kids, they ought to be back in school at least somehow. You know what I mean? Even if you're showing up one day a week, get back into the building. You know what I'm saying? Get back into the building in some way and have some so-called face-to-face time with your instructors. So,
I think another key piece that, if you try to think or project long-term about keeping these athletes away from the sidelines, and I'm saying that metaphorically, not playing this fall, that's not good for high school sports or the conference long term. There are families that, if they're able to, whether it's a financial means or it's too late in the school year to do so or whatever, but are going to explore other options for their kids, whether that's a late transfer to another school, or they're going to get them completely involved in club sports, which Willie alluded to. They've been doing all spring, and a lot of these programs run year-round now. I would think the last thing anybody in the conference wants is this to signal, and I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but the death of high school sports in the conference. I mean, if you miss an entire year, because let's face it, if you're not playing in the fall, what are the chances you're really going to play in the winter and that fall 2 season? I would say probably not great. That's just my opinion. But I would say, if you're already, saying that we're not going to try this now, doesn't look good. I just don't see that as being smart. That's not thinking in a rational manner. You don't want to. I mean, you want to keep kids. There's so much. I don't know if competition is the right word, but to keep good kids in your public schools, you have to have something to offer them. Whether it's the advanced placement classes or all kinds of extracurricular activities or whatnot. And athletics is a big part of that. And you want to keep, your athletes in schools. You want to have rich, strong athletic programs. By not giving them the chance to participate in athletics, when you see your peers around the state are going to have the chance to do so, that can be a crippling thing for the conference.
Well, gentlemen, I'm looking at the clock here, and we're not rushed for time, but let's say we have 5 minutes left. I mean, is there anything else you guys like to talk about, either on the pro side or college side, or anything else that's happened in this past week that you want to share with us at all? Maybe Nick, you want to lead us off, or Rick?
Well, Nick knows Barry Hanrahan, vice president of the Flyers, and he's in the bubble. And I talked with him last night, and it's just amazing how it's going up there and how they're keeping an eye on things. But as Phil mentioned, these protests now, they're weaving their way into Major League Sports, and it's affecting the NHL now, which I think is interesting because they're all playing out of the country.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got nothing.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah. You don't have to react to that piece. I'm just saying if there's anything else happening. Well, you were following some baseball up there this past week, weren't you, Nick?
Yeah, a little baseball finished up. Rowley Rams, actually, the ITL won their first title in 9 years. Walk-off home run by Justin Bola. I think he's Nick Giannino's friend from up in the Pentucket area. He went, 7 for 9 with 4 homers in the series, including a walk-off. So he was the difference in that series. That was about as good an individual performance I've seen from a hitter in that series, including a walk-off home run that was a no-doubter out of Iris Park in Raleigh, which takes a shot to get out of it. There's no cheapies there.
No, that's not the hill at Evans.
No, it's not Memorial Field in Essex either, where it's 320 in the gaps. So, about 365 to the gaps there, and he put it way out.
Matt Williams?
Yeah, I mean, I just, we'll see what happens with all this. I hope that we have some stuff to do, I think that, like Phil said, not just statewide, but, on the North Shore itself, St. Mary's, Fenwick, the Cal, they'll be going. So hopefully we have something to look forward to one way or the other. And hopefully the Bruins and Celtics are both still playing, by the time all this happens. I guess around September 18th, that means they'd be at the end of the conference finals or in the finals. So I think, as long as they're playing, everybody's rooting for them to go as far as they can. I looked it up the other day. The last time I think they were both in the conference finals in the same year was 88. So that's kind of funny, as much success as we've had around here, they haven't both really gone super deep at the same time. So, hey, we'll see.
So, Phil, are the Bruins going to make it that far?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I mean, tough to say after you lost your last game 7-1, but that's the beauty of a 7-game series. There can be swings and valleys. Everybody was, planning the parade after they won game 1. So here we are now heading into game 4 and they're trailing 2-1. I mean, anything can happen. Obviously, need to snap out of that funk they had the other day. Need to get some better goaltending. Need to get some secondary scoring. Let's hope this time next week we're still talking about them, Rick. Let's put it that way.
What about the goaltending, Phil? What about that?
Well, you're asking a 35-year-old backup, and he's not a true backup, but, somebody who is obviously the second choice in terms of the goaltending pecking order to lead you to a title, with Tuukka Rask having left for what we believe to be some kind of family emergency. He's out of the bubble, so it's Yarrow Halak's team now. They got the rookie, Dan Vladar, in for his first ever NHL game the other day, and that poor kid got, exposed a little bit, not through his own fault, but very poor defensive team effort in front of him. So you have to hope that Halak has something left in the reserve tank and can get hot and his team starts playing the way they can in front of him, or they're going to be back soon.
Yeah, I think you can beat Carolina without Rask, but I don't know about a team like Tampa Bay. They're a little too good.
Yeah. Worried about the back-to-back, too. I mean, I think game 6 and 7 are going to be back-to-back days, and after the way the Bruins played on the second of the back-to-backs this time around, that is, perhaps not appetizing.